Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight to commemorate the martyrdom of Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam. We will start the program with the recitation of the Holy Quran, followed by Ziyarat of Sayyida Fatima by Brother Qasim Faqih. Brother Qasim, please start.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم القصاص في القتلى الحر بالحر والعبد بالعبد والأنثى بالأنثى بالأنثى الحر بالحر والعبد بالعبد والأنثى بالأنثى فمن عفي له من أخيه شيء فاتباع بالمعروف وأداء إليه بإحسان ذلك تخفيف من ربكم ورحمة فمن اعتدى بعد ذلك فله عذاب أليم ولكم في القصاص حياة يا أولي الألباب لعلكم تتقون صدق الله زيارة السيدة فاطمة الزهراء عليها سلام الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. السلام عليك يا بنت نبي الله. السلام عليك يا بنت حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا بنت خليل الله. السلام عليك يا بنت صفي الله. السلام عليك يا بنت أمين الله. السلام عليك يا بنت خير خلق الله. السلام عليك يا بنت أفضل أنبياء الله ورسله وملائكته. السلام عليك يا بنت خير البرية. السلام عليك يا سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين. السلام عليك يا زوجة ولي الله وخير الخلق بعد رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أم الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام عليك أيتها الصديقة الشهيدة. السلام عليك أيتها الرضية المرضية. السلام عليك أيتها الفاضلة الزكية. السلام عليك أيتها الحواء الإنسية. السلام عليك أيتها التقية النقية. السلام عليك أيتها المحدثة العليمة. السلام عليك أيتها المظلومة المغصوبة. السلام عليك أيتها المضطهدة المقهورة. السلام عليك يا فاطمة بنت رسول الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلى الله عليك وعلى روحك وبدنك. أشهد أنك مضيت على بينة من ربك وأن من سرك فقد سر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن جافاك فقد جفا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن آذاك فقد آذى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن وصلك فقد وصل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن قطعك فقد قطع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. لأنك بضعة من وروح الذي بين جنبي. أشهد الله ورسله وملائكته أني راض عمن رضيت عنه ساخط على من سخطي عليه متبرئ ممن تبرأت منه موال لما واليت معاد لمن عاديت مبغض لمن أبغضت محب لمن أحببت وكفى بالله شهيدا وحسيبا وجازيا ومثيبا وصلى الله وسلم على محمد وآل بيته.
Sheikhna, you can start. Uh,
Hello?
yeah, we can hear you right now.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I think my other phone is, I'm just going to turn that one off, okay? I think, Brother Adil, use the one that's, this is Shafiq Hudda.
Yeah, we're using that one.
Sorry?
We're using the one this time Shafiq al Huda. Yes.
Okay. Can you hear everything clearly? Inshallah.
Yeah.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين خالق السماوات والأرض إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين ورحمة الله على محبيهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقاتليهم وغاصب حقوق حقهم ومنكر فضائلهم مجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتبارك في كتابه الحكيم وفرقانه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Respected sisters and brothers of ARC, my youngsters, my elders, those who are watching and listening, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon all of you. عظم الله وجورنا ووجوركم من مسابنا فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. May Allah reward you for participating in this Majlis Azab, in this remembrance of Hazrat Fatima Zahra Salamullahi alayha. As all of you are aware, there are two narrations that talk about or refer to the Shahadat of Hazrat Fatima Zahra. One of them is 75 days after the Shahadat Wafat of Rasulullah. One of them is 95 days. Before the Nuqtas were in the Arabic language, in the Arabic letters, the two, and if you recall Islamic history, they don't always have importance on the dates themselves. They had talked about events and then days after the event. So for example, in the time of the birth of Rasulullah, they spoke about Amul Fil, the year of the elephant, when Abraha had attacked the Holy Kaaba. So when they came to the Shahadat of Hazrat Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, some of the historians had taken it as, I mean, it was written as Khamsa Sab'een, And if you look at Khamsa Sab'een and Khamsa Tis'een, 75 or 95, you see that without the nuktas, they can be both written the same. So some historians took it as Khamsa Sab'een, some took it as Khamsa Tis'een, 95 or 75 days after Wafat of Rasulullah. In some places, like in the Islamic Republic and various other Islamic, Ahlul Bayt communities, they refer to these 20 days as Ayyame Fatimiya, the days marking the remembrance of Hazrat Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, peace be upon her and her near and dear ones. I want to first of all apologize to Ark. I was supposed to be with you physically today. Unfortunately, all of you are aware of the situation, the circumstances around us with the lockdown and the challenges that we're having. So for that, I wanted to extend my sincere apologies, and I wanted to still appreciate the Mu'mineen for still taking part and allowing me to have this Zoom lecture, or this lecture on YouTube, pardon me. And as we discuss a little bit of the life of Hazrat Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, peace be upon her, and some of the lessons that we learned and what we can gain in our era today, in the time and age, in the day and age that we are living in, from the life of Hazrat Zahra alayhi salam, a very illustrious life, a very pure life, a very beautiful life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us as an exemplary lesson in our lives to be able to follow. It has been narrated by the historians and by the biographers of Hazrat Zahra that the Prophet had certain distance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordered him to be separated from Hazrat Khadija al-Kubra, Khadija Tahira, salamullahi alayha, peace be upon her. And after the duration of this 40-day waiting period was done, then Rasulullah went back to Hazrat Khadija Tahira, and basically the conception of Hazrat Fatima Zahra alayha salam took place at that time. And at the time, now those of you who are mothers will appreciate one thing, that childbirth is a very, very difficult time. It is a very sensitive time where they say, some of the poets have written, one foot is in the grave, one foot is on earth. So you're, between these two very difficult times when help is needed, assistance is needed for that time. And when Hazrat Khadija had approached some of the ladies around in Makkah, and this was just after she had already accepted the message of the Holy Prophet, she was a die-hard, supporter and basically close to the Holy Prophet. And as a result of her being so close to the Prophet, accepting his message, making sure that the people understood that this message is the correct message, many of the ladies in the area in Makkah Mukarramah, the holy city of Makkah, had actually deserted her, had refused to give her any assistance, had refused to give her any help. And so this was a very distressing time for her. And just before the birth of Hazrat Fatima Zahra, Hazrat Khadija's house was knocked upon. And four ladies had actually come there and said that we have been ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you, oh Khadija, oh lady. Khadija. One was Sarah, the wife of Hazrat Ibrahim. One was Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun. One was Maryam, the mother of Hazrat Nabi Allah Isa alayhi salam. And the third one was Kulthum, the sister of Hazrat Musa Nabi Allah alayhi salam, peace be upon them all. And these four holy ladies were there at the time of the birth of Fatima Zahra to help Janabi Khadija Tahira at the time. And as soon as Hazrat Fatima Zahra was born, before they had gone back to their elevated places in paradise, Allah, the light of the Lady of Light, actually greeted all of them. Assalamu alayki. She greeted all of them. They replied the greeting and then they went back. So right from the birth, Hazrat Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha had the divine light and inspiration. And with that, she greeted. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Many names are narrated for Hazrat Zahra, beginning with Fatima. And the name Fatima actually symbolizes the differentiation. She will distinguish and differentiate those who are be going to heaven and those who will be in the other place, in the hellfire. So Fatima Siddiqa, the truthful one, that her whole essence, her purity was truthfulness. And she is known as Siddiqa Tahira, the pure one. And when Allah Ta'ala gave her this title of Tahira, it means that she was so pure that no filth would come near her. No, whether it was menstruation blood or any other filth of any sort or kind in this world was not near her whatsoever. And many of the biographers have mentioned that had it not been for Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullahi alayha, may Allah bless him, inshallah, salamullahi alayhi, that there would be nobody who would be worthy of marrying Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha. There would be nobody at that status of Hazrat Zahra except for Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Another title of hers is Mubarakah, the blessed one. Another title of her is Radiya, Radiya and Mardiya, the one who is pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, whatever the decree of Allah is. One is Mardiya, who Allah is pleased with. Mardiya. Another title, and this was an interesting title, during the time that Hazrat Khadija had Janab Fatima alayhi salam in her womb, oftentimes there would be communication. She would actually be speaking to Hazrat Khadija, because remember, this was a time when the Quraysh and everybody in Makkah had boycotted the Holy Prophet, had boycotted Hazrat Khadija. The ladies would not speak to her, would not deal with her. They had been forbidden by their husbands to have any sort of interaction with Khadija. So it was a very lonely time for Janabe Khadija, for Hazrat Khadija alayhi salam. And so one of the things that Hazrat Zahra used to do from the womb was she'd actually have conversations. So her one title is Muhadditha, the one who is conversing. And so when the birth of Hazrat Zahra salamullahi alayha took place, this was a very divine, inspired, divinely narrated birth time. And so her whole life from that young age, because she had lost her mother at a very young age. Hazrat Khadija had left this world as a result of what was happening. And Hazrat Fatima herself left this world as a result of what had transpired. And so it was a noble life that was led by her. From the young age, she was inculcated these noble values and traits by Hazrat Khadija, her mother. And so she shone like a star in the entire, the Arabian Peninsula. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam mentions that one of the reasons why her name is Zahra, is that her illumination reached the heavens, and Zahra, of course, means light and the one who illuminates. And that Allah Ta'ala has given her a beautiful mansion, a paradise in the heavens, that the length and the width of it stretches so far that it would take you a year to travel that distance. So that is one of the things that we are told, that the name Zahra and what is her status, what is her role in paradise is narrated. But one of the things that I wanted to discuss in today's discussion is, of course, there are many ayat of the Holy Quran that refer to Hazrat Zahra and the members of the Ahlul Bayt. I started with one of the shortest, and it is recorded by the historians that this is either the shortest surah between Surah Asr and Surah Kawthar. One of the is considered as the shortest surah, one is the second shortest surah. But nonetheless, we can move from there and see that Surah Kawthar. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Inna atayna kal kawthar. Allah Ta'ala says that surely we have given you, inna atayna kal kawthar. We have given you the kawthar. And I don't want to go into I don't have the time or the ability. I'm not a commentator, I'm not a mufassir. I don't have the ability to go into the commentary of Surah Surah Al-Kawthar. But I just want to talk about a few aspects of it from what the commentators, the mufassirin of the Quran Majid have said. And they've narrated that Surah Kawthar has been, of course, revealed in the praise and in the shan of Hazrat Zahra. Allah Ta'ala is telling the Holy Prophet, Inna ataynaka al-Kawthar, we have given you the Kawthar. Kawthar, on one hand, refers to a very beautiful stream in paradise. A stream that is regarded as a part of a kind of a water that is a very sweet, a delicacy, a very, very beautiful water, a very refreshing water that is, in some narrations, has been referred to as milk. In some has been water, but a very, very refreshing, very pure water. And Kawthar is that stream from which, inshallah, the Muslims, if they have done what Allah Ta'ala has ordered them to, if they have followed the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they obeyed the Quran Majid and teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah, we will be entitled to taking a sip from the stream of Kawthar. The other group of commentators, when they define or they translate the word Kawthar, is from Kathir. means abundance. And so the Quran is telling the Holy Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Holy Prophet that we have given you abundance. We have given you lots. And the commentators who have taken this approach have said that, look at today in the world, in the Arabian Peninsula at the time, one of the things that they were proud of, that they were, they used to have this fakhr, they used to have this arrogance, was the fact that they had many children. They had many children, and they would, the children would work on the farms. The children would be a source of the strength for the father. The children would be a source of greatness for the family, and especially sons. As you know, the sons were regarded very, very prominently. And whether it was in the battlefield, the sons were appreciated. Whether it was on the fields working and straining themselves, but the Arabs used to pride themselves in having many children, especially sons. And so, on the one hand, daughters were regarded very negatively. As you remember your Islamic history, daughters were actually buried alive. When the wife would give birth to a daughter, the father's whole image would change. He would be angry, he would be upset, he didn't want a daughter. And basically, many of them would be, we are told that countless ones had been buried alive at the time. And the Quran had mentioned and reminds us that those fathers will be asked, for which crime did you kill us? The daughters will be asking that. And so the grace was that, the arrogance of the time was that we have this many sons, we have this many, and they used to have these discussions amongst themselves that, I have this many sons, I have the other one will say, I have this many sons. And today, if you look around, you can hardly find any of the children, maybe sporadically, of Abu Sufyan, of Abu Lahab, of Abu Jahl, many of these Abus. Do you see any of their children around today? Yes, we are told that the Sufyani will come before Imam Mahdi Ajjalallah Ta'ala who returns, somebody from the lineage of Abu Sufyan. But I'm saying as a general rule. But when you look at the Sayyids, you have got children from the lineage of the Holy Prophet through Fatima Zahra Salamullahi alayha. As a result, in almost every major inhabited continent on the world, you will find some Sayyids there. Whether you look at, Zaydi Sayyids, you look at Alawi, Naqawi, Taqawi, you look at Bakri, Ja'fari, Musawi, Kazmi, you see that, mashallah, Allah Ta'ala has given the Holy Prophet so much abundance. Inna atayna al-kawthar. And so the Quran is reminding us that the Holy Prophet himself has said, the Quran is reminding us that Allah Ta'ala will give an abundance to the Holy Prophet. And the Prophet himself says that everybody's lineage will be through the father, except my lineage will be through Fatima Zahra. So much so that even Bukhari in his Sahih has mentioned, he said that when he talked about the Mahdi, he says, Al-Mahdi min itrati min wulad al-Fatimiya. He says that he is quoting, Imam Bukhari is quoting the Holy Prophet by saying that the Mahdi min itrati will be from my family, min wulad al-Fatimiya, from amongst the children of Fatima Zahra Salamullahi. So this is something that is accepted by all Muslims, that Imam Mahdi Ajjalallah Ta'ala Dhuru will be from amongst the children of Hazrat Fatima. And so this is just one reference. And as you know, as I mentioned, I am not doing a commentary, but I just wanted to come to this conclusion on the status of Hazrat Fatima Zahra from the Quranic perspective. Then you come to another surah of the Holy Quran. Surah number 76 is known as Surah Dahr, Surah Insan, or Surah Hal Ata. At the beginning, it talks about Hal Ata al Insan, that you remember that there was a time on the human being where he was not worthy of mentioning. There is nothing that he was not even worthy. And if you look at our own existences, we see that the time before we came into this world, or as we were about to come into this world, we didn't have much significance. We were a drop of sperm, we were just a drop, and there was no body, no shape, no bones, no skin, no eyes, no nose, no nothing. There was nothing worthy. And there was not even worthy of mentioning. You can imagine, obviously it would be nice to go into detail and see how insignificant we were. And then we all of a sudden, we come into this world, we get our body, we earn some money, we get some prestige, and we get some, status, and we think of ourselves to be Pharaoh, we think of ourselves to be great. Look at our beginning. We were born with a najis, with an unclean, ceremonial, unclean drop of water. When we leave this world, we will be najis that if somebody touches us, they have to take ghusl and masamayat. right? That anybody who gives me a burial ghusl, the washing, the ablution for the burial, they will have to take a ghusl of masamayat if they have touched me, because I will be najis at that time. I will be ceremonially unclean. My beginning is unworthy of mention, ceremonially unclean. My end is going to be in the same status. I'm not even worthy. I'll just be a body lying there. I'll be unclean. If anybody touches me, they will have to take a ghusl themselves before the ablution has taken place, before my own ghusl and masamayat takes place. And so, in between, what is the arrogance that we have, my dear sisters and brothers? In between, what are we doing? What are we thinking? Why the arrogance? Why the takabbur? Why this me, myself, and I? This ananiya. Allahu Akbar. This is why when Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, was asked that Yabna Rasulullah, in the salat there is one ruku, there's one tashahud, there's the one, kunut and all that. Why are there two sujood? Imam says, he says, don't you realize you have come from this earth, the dirt earth you have come from, and you will be going back into this earth. And that time in between the two sajdas, think of that as your life. And what is recommended to recite there, my sisters and brothers? You remember? It is recommended in the salat in between the two sajdas, the two sujood, to recite Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Oh Allah, forgive me. I'm turning back to you. I am sorry for what I have done. So the Imam is telling us that this is symbolic of our lives, that the whole essence that we are here for is to ask forgiveness from Allah, to seek closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to reach closer towards Him, and not be engrossed and engaged in these day-to-day worldly things. Not that we are detaching ourselves completely from the world. No, no, no. The world, use it as a chain. This is what the Prophet has said. Use it as a link to get to the Akhirah. Amir al-Mu'mineen, in a very beautiful hadith, says that the example, the mithal of this dunya is like a ship. The ship needs the water to sail. It needs to get to its destination. It needs to get to wherever it wants to get to. As a result of the water, it can go. But if that water goes inside the ship, it will drown the ship. You see? If the water goes inside the ship, it will cause the ship to drown. It will cause the ship to sink. Huh? But the water is needed for the ship to sail. He said the dunya is like this. As long as you use the dunya to use your ship to get to the akhirah, alhamdulillah. But if that dunya goes inside us, it will cause us to sink and to drown. Allahu Akbar. So, Surah Halata, Surah Insan, starts out with this. And again, I'm not doing a commentary. I just want to come to the part whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, He guides us, Inna hadaynahu sabila, imma shakirun wa imma kafura. Allah ta'ala has guided us, whether we give thanks or we reject. Imma shakirun wa imma kafura. Whether we give thanks and follow Him and be of the believers, wa imma kafura, or we reject it and we be, because the choice is ours. It is in our ikhtiyar. And then as these ayats progress in this beginning part of the surah, Allah ta'ala mentions about some people who have given everything they have, who feed the poor, the orphans, and the captives for nothing else than the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For nothing else other than the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the commentators, the Shan and Nuzul, or the commentary of these verses here, are that what happened was one time Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were young children. They were ill. They'd just become ill, whatever the case was. And as a result of that illness, Amir al-Mu'mineen went to the Holy Prophet, and the Prophet suggested that they make another niyah to fast for 3 days, and inshallah, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein will get the shifa. Very simple thing. So Hazrat Fatima, some say that Hazrat Fatima had gone to the Prophet and he suggested to her, some have mentioned there was Amir al-Mu'mineen Khair. So when they decided this, Hazrat Fatima had announced, as soon as Hazrat Imam Hassan Imam Hussein, I'm saying Imam Hassan Imam Hussein, but these were young children at the time, remember that. So when they were basically given shifa, they had been cured, Hazrat Fatima had decided to fulfill the vow. Imam Hassan Imam Hussein, although they were children, he says, we also want to fast. We also want to keep this fast. Amir al-Mu'mineen also said that I will also fast. And Hazrat Fidda, the servant of Hazrat Fatima, whom she treated like a sister, not a servant, she says, I will also fast because Imam Hassan and Hussein were very close to her, very dear to her. And this was the same Hazrat Fidda who had gone in Karbala Mola with Abu Abdullah al Hussein and was very close to, like a very dear motherly figure to Hazrat Zainab, Kulthum, and all the members of the Ahlul Bayt. She also decided to fast. And as a result, what happened was that I want to just ask all of you one thing. Just keep something in your mind. The Prophet of Islam loved Imam Hassan and Hussein so much. No doubts. Nobody will doubt that. Even Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at historians have said that the love that the Prophet had for Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein was undoubted, was very clear. There was no doubt or shak whatsoever in the amount of love the Holy Prophet had for Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. Okay. And of course, Hassan al Hussein, Shabab Ahl al Jannah, they are the leaders, they say the Shabab Ahl al Jannah, they are the leaders of the youth of paradise. The question arises that the Prophet tells Fatima Zahra alayhi salam or Amirul Mumineen to fast. And would it not be a good idea, Ya Rasulullah, that you love them so much, they were sick, and would it not be a good idea if, Ya Rasulullah, you also fasted? Huh? If you also, I mean, your love for Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, these young children was so great that you would want their shifa as well. You want them to be cured. But the Prophet was not known to fast at this particular time, whereas the others were. And oftentimes, many of the Orientalists, many of the non-Shias say that, oh, you Shias, you say that Ali will be distributing Jannah and Jahannam. Ali will be there to say who will go to heaven, who will go to hell. And Fatima Zahra, you mentioned that. And, because I had a very beautiful hadith mentions that on the day of judgment, Hazrat Fatima Zahra will go and she will know the Shia, and she will take her followers and those who had loved the Ahlul Bayt, she will take them into paradise. She'll have the, on an elevated station and be picking and choosing. And when some had asked Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, how can this be? How can, out of those billions and billions, maybe trillions of people who have been there from Adam till Khatam and Khatam till Yawm al-Qiyamah, how would you pick them out? And the Imam gave a very beautiful, he says, have you seen a bird picking the seeds? When the bird is picking the seeds, it knows exactly which are the good seeds and it will reject the bad seeds. So Hazrat Zahra will know exactly who the good people are and will be able to take them. And she will actually wait until they are in paradise and they'll be accompanying her. Okay. So they say, how can you say that? The answer will be given in this as well. Why the Prophet didn't fast when Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were ill, and why or how, what is our basis for saying that Amirul Mumineen or Fatima Zahra will be differentiating, distinguishing who will enter into paradise. Allah Ta'ala narrates this in the Quran, this episode, about in Surah Halata as to what happened. There are some people who gave what they have for no desire, no reward, desire of reward. This is not for anything, like I'm doing this, you do that, I'm doing this, you give me that, please. No business transaction, no dealings, nothing I want except the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're with me, I hope, inshallah. And so the first night that they were about to break their fast, they had been fasting the whole day. Amirul Mu'minin had brought some barley. Hazrat Zahra had made 5 loaves of bread. They were going to have, their normal water, bread, and they would be breaking their fast with that. As soon as they were about to break their fast, a knock comes on the door of Fatima Zahra. Mawla Ali alayhi salam goes to answer the door. It is a miskin, a faqir, a poor person. He says, I have not eaten anything. Can you please give me some food? Imam Ali gives his bread. Hazrat Fatima says, no, I want to give my bread to him as well. The young children, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, remember I'm saying Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, but they were only 4 or 5 years of age. They said, no, we will also give. And Hazrat Fidda herself also says, no, I will give my bread as well. This is my sadaqah. It's gone. They broke their fast with just a glass of water, a little bit of salt, and they went to sleep. The next day was their next fast. Just as they were about to break their fast, a knock comes on the door. an orphan is at the door and saying that I have no parents. I am very hungry. Can you give me something? Again, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Hazrat Fatima Zahra, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Hazrat Fidda herself, they all give everything they had, the bread that they had that they were going to break their fast with. On the second night, they gave it away. They again broke their fast with just a little bit of salt and some water, went to sleep. The third day comes. The third day comes. Again, same thing. Hazrat Zahra has made 5 loaves of bread. They're about to break their fast. As they're about to break the fast, a knock comes on the door. It is a freed captive. He says that I don't have a job. I don't have anything. I have been just freed now. Do you have something, some sadaqah to give me? Same thing happens. They give Hazrat Zahra, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Hazrat Fidda, they give away. And then the next day, the day after that, they go to sleep with a glass of water. And by that next day, 3 days, they have not eaten anything. Remember that. So this is now the 4th day. When the Prophet sees Imam Ali, he says, Ya Ali, what has happened? And he doesn't say much. He doesn't say anything. And Jibreel Amin comes and tells the Holy Prophet this, that there are some people who have given this. And as a result, Allah Ta'ala will not give them any fear on the day of judgment, and they will have this. But there's something interesting that the Quran mentions here. After this was done and the ayat was revealed, Allah Ta'ala says, وَجَزَاهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. I'm giving them Jannah. I'm giving them paradise. The commentators have said that, Allah Ta'ala uses His words very, very particularly. There's a meaning to every word. If we look at our day-to-day dealings, when somebody gives us something, there's 2 ways that we may get something. One is called ata. Ata means give something. So for example, I give you a book. I give you a book. And I tell you that I'm giving you this book on the condition that you read 1 chapter every night until you finish the book. If you don't read 1 chapter every night, I want the book back. Give it back to me. This is ata. Somebody might give you a tasbih and say, can you please take out 10 tasbihs of this, 10 tasbihs of that. Somebody gives you a sajjadiyah, a musalla, a jan namaz, and they say that, use this at least once a day or once a week, and you pray on that. If you don't, I want it back. This is known as ata. Then there's something else, another way of giving, that is called jaza. Jaza means a reward, a recompense. So for example, Ottawa has had some snow. We here in Kitchener, mashallah, we've had about 11 or 12 centimeters of snow. And I call you to my house. I call one of the youngsters to my house. I said, can you please shovel my driveway? I need your help to shovel my driveway. I can't do it. I'm old now. Parts of the body are hurting. So tell them to do something. I sometimes call the boys in the neighborhood. I say, come in, please do my driveway. I give them $10. I give them $10. Now think for a moment. In the first example, I told you, you read this book every night, 1 chapter. If you don't read it, I want it back. Here's a tasbih. If you don't take out tasbih every week, I want this tasbih, the subhan back. Now, if somebody shovels my driveway, if somebody cuts my grass, I'm reminding you of the grass, the greenery that we had before, mashallah, all the snow, right? And with COVID now, with lockdown and with this isolation and self-isolation and 14 days this and no lockdown, Allahu Akbar, the whole world has changed, the whole life has changed. But inshallah, may Allah give us the patience, the strength, and the ability to bear through it. So imagine for a moment, I give this young boy $10. He has done my driveway, cleans off my car. I give him an extra $5, and he does out the sides, makes it really nice. The sidewalk is cleaned, everything is done. A little while later, I see him at the convenience store, and he's buying a chocolate, and he's buying, chocolate milk, and he's buying, a soda pop and a chocolate and a milk and whatever. And I look at him and I says, "What are you doing?" He says, "You just paid me, so I'm buying a chocolate. I'm buying this, cola. I'm buying milk, chocolate milk." I said, no, don't do that. Chocolate is, not good for you. It's going to give you calories and you become diabetic like I am. And this fizzy drink, one of the reasons why I'm paying the price now is because I was drinking fizzy drinks all my childhood. So, I try to be nice to him and I try and, a lot of times we have to remember some people will be nice to us genuinely and some people will not. I'm going to talk about that in a minute as well. Okay. So I tell him, I tell him, don't buy this. No. He says, but it's my money. Now think for a moment, my dear students. my youngsters, my elders. I'm telling him, that young boy, don't buy this, don't buy that, don't buy this. Just buy plain milk. And he can tell me, Mr. Shafiq, sir, you gave me the money. I can do whatever I want. You have nothing to do with it. And he's fully correct, right? Because I gave him jaza. He did work for me. I paid him $10, $15. Whatever he wants to do with it is entirely up to him. I have no right over that money because it no longer belongs to me. It was his earnings. He did it, the work that he was supposed to do, and he get paid. He got paid the amount that he was supposed to. So what he does with that $10, $15 is none of my concern anymore. It is entirely his prerogative. Now think for a moment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, in this surah of Halata says that because they did all of this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the pleasure of Allah, as part of their jaza, not ata. Jaza. Allah Ta'ala says, I'm giving them paradise. And so it is up to them to decide whoever they allow to come into paradise and whoever they prevent from coming to paradise. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that answers a very interesting dilemma. How can you say that Ali will do this? Because he earned it. That was his recompense. It is not something that was a subject, you do this, I do that. And no. He earned it. Fatima Zahra salamullahi ala earned it. Hazrat Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain alayhi salam earned it. Hazrat Fidda earned that station in paradise. For jazahumul jannah. That Allah Ta'ala is saying for their jaza, they're going to get. Now think for a moment. The Prophet of Islam at this particular juncture, the Prophet was known to fast regularly throughout the year. Why not at this time? Because had the Prophet fasted and had the Prophet also been given this station at that time or in this particular instance, then others would have come to the Prophet and said, don't forget, we are also your relatives. We are also connected to you. We are this and we are that. And so make sure you give us a place in Jannah as well in order to keep that prerogative in the hands of Ali Muhammad, in the hands of the family of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was only limited to Fatima Zahra, Amirul Mu'mineen, Hassan al-Hussein, and Hazrat Fidda, salamullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. So that nobody could manipulate their position with the Holy Prophet and say that, oh, we are connected to you like this, we are your so-and-so, we are your family members, we are your extended family members, we are this. No. It was limited to the members of Ahlul Bayt, as mentioned in Surah Ahzab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear and distinct. And what I was saying earlier, that we have to be cautious of those who pretend to be our friends. Because here again, in the life of Hazrat Zahra, people have manipulated even her life, sadly, Allahu Akbar. And they have done harm to her. I mean, it was not limited in the Masaib. I'll mention that, the oppression on Hazrat Zahra was not limited to just in the time in Medina at the time of her own life, her short 18 years of life. But even today, we see the oppression continuing. And the oppression continues in different forms. People will misuse and manipulate life. One thing that Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam has said, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala, is that nobody can deny the oppression on the Ahlul Bayt. If anybody denies the oppression on the Ahlul Bayt, they are actually a part of the oppression themselves. They have actually taken the importance of our wilayah away from us. Imam Baqir is very clear on that, very explicit on that. Nobody can deny the oppression. But then to abuse that oppression for one's own gains. We have seen one thing in human history. When we have an enemy in front of us, we know that is our enemy. And we know how to deal with them. They know how to deal with us. Our enemy is our enemy. Finish. The main problem that Islam has suffered so much is that enemies have come to us in the guise of our friends. What they say in English, the wolf that comes in a sheep's clothing. Those who have claimed to be our friends, whether it is a political leader, if it's our enemy, at least we know it's our enemy. Whether it is, south of the border, whether it is in another country, in another nation, when somebody we know is an anti-Muslim, anti-Shia, anti-Iran, anti-whatever, we know how to deal with our enemies. We know what to expect. The problem and the destruction of Islam is when those who are our enemies come in the form of our friends. They pretend to be nice. They're soft-spoken. They, pretend to do this and that, and they may write books, or they make movies, or they, have clips on YouTube and on social media and on Facebook and all these other, Twitter and Instagram and what have you. And they say, oh, we are followers of Ahlul Bayt, we are this. And in actuality, they are destroying Islam from within. One of the things our enemies have realized and learned is that the followers of Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha could not be destroyed militarily. The more they killed us, the stronger they made us. The resilience, the willpower has been increased when we lose our lives, our near ones, and our dear ones. Karbala taught us that by shahadat we actually get a new life. By martyring us, we get a new life. They think that by killing our generals, our leaders, our ulama, our noble people, the muttaqiyan, our scientists, the servants of Islam and the Ahlul Bayt, they think that they can annihilate Islam. They realize that they cannot. It gives us even more strength. And as we're going to be marking the shahadat of General Qasim and the martyrdom of Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh and Abu Mahdi and so many others, we realize that this is nothing new for us. We've got a 1400-year history of getting our faith reinvigorated with martyrdom. But the sad thing is, our enemies realize that they cannot do this militarily by killing and by assassinating. So another trick was used simultaneously. So this was not left aside. No. They realized who are the prized possessions of the Ahlul Bayt lovers world. They knew who are they. Even when you see in Pakistan assassinations of top doctors, specialists, who just because they are Shia get targeted. There are lists that have been publicized that these people are on the hit list because they are prominent Shia, prominent Muslims, or what have you. But another thing simultaneously they use is to destroy us from within, create friction within the Shia. Whether it is by calling it wajib to say Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah in the tashahud of salat, or whether it is creating movies, or whether it is creating fitna, or openly going into the social media and openly announcing in salatul jamaat, Allahumma la'an fala ibn fala, Allahumma la'an binte ibn binte, Allahumma la'an. By doing this, they're showing the enmity to the Shia. They are not our friends. By making a movie on Imam Hussein or on Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, or on Imam Mahdi or Imam Rida, not necessarily are all these people our friends. See what the content and the implications are. Is it to divide the Muslim world? Today, a very famous statement of Imam Khomeini resonates today. He says that our enemies don't care whether you fold your hands and pray or you keep your hands down and pray. They want to cut off your hands and annihilate all of you, Shia or Sunni. This is the time for us to work together against the common enemy, against oppression, against injustice, against occupying powers, against tyrannical governments, and bring about justice and equality, or at least strive to bring about justice and equality, because this is what the whole life of Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha was about. Annihilating and speaking against oppression and standing up for the haq. وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. The truth has come, the falsehood has vanished. Falsehood is destined to vanish. Quran Majid, Surah Bani Israel mentions that. An ayat that is very closely related to Imam Mahdi Ajjallahu Ta'ala Dhuhuru. Sadly, we all get excited. We all start saying, oh, this person is our friend, this person is our friend. And, oftentimes even when elections take place, sometimes people get excited, and they get. One thing history has taught us: an oppressive regime will be an oppressive regime whether the face changes or not. Whether the head of that government, the head of the state, the head of the this bureaucracy changes or not, the policies are what we are looking at. This is why Amirul Mu'mineen, when somebody says, Ya Ali, in the battle of Jamal, he says, I see you on one side, I see those so and so on the other side. prominent companions or so-called companions of the Holy Prophet, family members of the Holy Prophet, and you're on the other side. Imam laid down a policy from that time, 1250 or plus years ago. Imam says, don't look at personalities, look at the principle, look at the issues, and then follow the issues. Stay close to the issues, not personalities. And that's when the people who are called to remember, were ordered to remember, were reminded that al-haqqu ma'aliyun wa aliyun ma'al-haqq. The truth is with Ali and Ali is with the truth. You don't need to worry about anything else. If you want to know where the truth is, see where Ali ibn Abi Talib is, and that is where the haqq will be. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So please, my sisters, my brothers, don't get overexcited. Oh, the election took place and this happened, or this movie has come out and all that. These are all simultaneous things that the enemies are working on in order to give a new face and to disguise their enmity in various forms. Today, we have a number of battles in front of us, not necessarily military battles. We've got spiritual battles. We have intellectual battles. We need those who are able to come out with a pen to take their pen. Those who have got eloquence in speaking to come out and speak. Those who are there. The sad thing is people have said, oh, movies and documentaries and all of this, these things become really, really, ways of conveying the message. The sad thing is, yes, and I'm not denying that. Yes, we do need, good multimedia. We need good, documentaries, sincere. If you look at, mashallah, so much work has come out of the Islamic Republic on the life of Imam Rada, on the life of Muslim ibn Aqil, on Mukhtar, on Imam Rada, and, Hazrat Maryam al-Muqaddasa, mashallah, with the sincerity and the khulus, life of Hazrat Yusuf, with the sincerity and khulus as per the Quranic teachings, as per the Ahlul Bayt's honest teachings, to create harmony, to create fraternity, not to divide and disunite and create friction amongst the Shia themselves and with the Shia against others. And this is why, Ayatollah Nasir Makarim says that if anybody has been killed, gets killed as a result of this, the implications in the movie that has been made about Hazrat Zahra, or somebody gets harmed, the perpetrators, the initiators of that will be responsible, whether it is in the dunya or, more importantly, in the akhirah, in the hereafter. So please keep in mind that do not get over emotional. And remember at the same time that while we are living in an era whereby we need to visualize things, we want to see things, we want to be able to appreciate things through visualization and through, television and cinema and documentary. Yes, we understand that. Because this even happens with many ulama. I've sometimes heard youngsters and youths, and even sometimes elders as well. They say, oh, Maulana so-and-so, Sheik so-and-so, he's boring. His lectures are very boring. Even though those lectures might be very, very important, very cohesive and very, very, imperative in conveying the knowledge of the Quran Majid and the Ahlul Bayt. Oh, but his style is very boring. He's monotone. He's monotonous in his, delivery. People want to be entertained. They want Maulanas to be, entertaining. They don't want to learn anything. So if somebody has got an entertaining, ability, and they speak really well and very beautifully and very clearly, and even if they have no knowledge whatsoever, even if they're causing destruction, people say, oh, mashallah, mashallah, so-and-so is really good. So-and-so, Maulana is really, really good, because, we want to be entertained. Remember, the world is not about entertainment. It's about getting our taqwa better to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to reach the closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why, Hazrat Zahra's one episode I want to quote before I end the lecture. I know I've taken much of your time. May Allah bless you, inshallah. May Allah reward you. But one night, it was a Shabi Jum'ah, Laylatul Jum'ah, Thursday night. And Imam Hassan was just a young child. He was watching his mother pray from the time of Salatul Isha. And he was watching his mother in the night praying. She was remembering the Prophet. She was remembering the Anbiya, the previous prophets. She was remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She was praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. She was remembering those near and dear companions those who had supported the Prophet, who had supported the message, who had been there, in the advancement of Islam. And as the time of Subh Sadiq comes, Salatul Fajr, she has finished her du'as. She has remembered everybody else. Imam Hassan goes to her and says, Mummy, la ilaha illallah. You remembered everybody else, but you didn't pray for yourself. Hazrat Fatima smiles and replies to him, oh, my dear Hassan, what can I do? The night was too short. I had to remember this is the haqq of Allah that we worship Him. This is the haqq of the Prophet that we remember and send salutations upon him. It is the haqq of the previous prophets that we remember them as well and send salutations upon them. It is a haqq of those noble, sincere companions that we remember them as well. If the night is so short that I cannot remember myself, what can I say? Allahu Akbar. And this is why the Prophet said that these qualities of Fatima Zahra, that anybody who hurts Fatima has hurt me. Anybody who injures Fatima has injured me. Anybody who disrespects or angers Fatima has disrespected or angered Fatima minni, she is a part of me. And it was this Fatima Zahra at the young age of 18 was taken away from this world. Why? Because some wanted power, some wanted to have that elevation from the worldly point of view. And no, there are so many narrators that say that, oh, well, they came to apologize to her before her on her deathbed. Remember one thing, my dear sisters and brothers. An apology, when it's genuine, means you rectify the wrongs that had been committed. It's not enough just to come and say, I'm sorry. Return fadak. Fadak was not a piece of property that the Fatima Zahra was after. No, no, no. Think for a moment, my dear sisters and brothers. Fatima Zahra alayha salam was the daughter of Rasulullah, the daughter of the one who had gone to Arsh Azim, the Arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who had gone to the throne of Allah ta'ala. Allah ta'ala says to him, whatever you want, O Muhammad, ask and I'll give it to you. This is the daughter of the one who has got the heavens and the earth at their disposal, in their hand, in the palm of their hand. She does not need one piece of property, but Fadak represented the financial and political and religious independence of Fatima Zahra, her children, her near ones, her dear ones, and her followers. Not a piece of property. People often ask, why Palestine? Why are you worried about Lebanon? Why are you worried about Yemen? Why Nigeria? Why Bahrain? Why Syria? Why Kashmir? The root of that is that we're not after property or land. It's the principle that we have to remember. It is the struggle against oppression that is at the forefront of the lives of Ahlul Bayt that we are ordered to emulate. Nobody returned Fadak. It was not a piece of property that she was after, but rather that financial freedom to worship Allah and to not have anybody have to come and beg any king, any monarch, any Khalifa of the day. And so she had lived her life in that oppressive state after the demise of the Holy Prophet of Islam. During the lifetime of the Holy Prophet, she saw the kuffar, the Qurayshis, boycotting the Prophet, beating the Prophet, throwing garbage on the Prophet, and at every turning she was there to help and solace the Prophet. When the time had come that the oppressors wanted Imam Ali to give bayat to the Khalifa who was selected, Hazrat Fatima's house was attacked in order to get Imam Ali out. Imagine for a moment how difficult this station must have been, this time must have been. That the house of Fatima Zahra was attacked. A beautiful book has been written called Oppression on the Ahlul Bayt by Kauthar Publications. It is narrating with the authentic historical references of how the Hazrat Zahra salamullahi alayha was beaten at the time when her house was attacked, how she was whipped so much so that her hands were bleeding so much that even Miqdad and Abu Dhar had seen the stains of blood around, and yet Hazrat Zahra's patience was sublime. My dear mourners, it was here at this time that when Imam Ali came to the defense of Hazrat Zahra and his sword came out and he took one of those people who were attacking the house of Fatima Zahra and he threw him on the floor, and the people got terrified of the anger of Ali. Imam Ali says that if it was not for the promise that I had made to Rasulullah, I would have not allowed anything to happen. I would have annihilated all of you. But I had made a promise to Rasulullah that I will not do anything else. I will not let my sabr go on unattended. And as a result, we see that Hazrat Zahra calls out to Hazrat Fizza. Imam Ali embraces Hazrat Zahra, calls Hazrat Fizza and says, please bring the blanket. Fatima has been injured. It was at this time during this injury when the door of the house was being thrown on her and crushed her so much that a doctor had once mentioned, I was reading, that the doctor, a non-Shia, was saying that this her narration is such that if somebody has one small crack in a bone, it will cause them such injury that they will not be able to walk or even talk. If Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha's ribs were cracked, were broken, she would not only not be able to walk, she would not even be able to speak. My salams and salutations on Fatima Zahra. When Imam Ali saw this state and he noticed that Mohsen has been killed at this time, there are a number of individuals, including Confuz and Khalid bin Walid, and Mughayra. Any of these three were responsible for the murder of Mohsen. It is narrated that had some of the people in the community stood up at the time of Mohsen's murder when Hazrat Fatima was tortured like this, then nobody would have had the audacity to kill Ali Asghar on the plains of Karbala. And Hazrat Zahra calls her children. She didn't want them to see the injuries. She didn't want them to see what she was suffering. She put on nice clothes just before her demise. Just before she leaves the world, she put on nice clothes on herself. She brings Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. She bathes them. She feeds them. And she gives them clothes. She does not tell them what she is suffering. But they can tell from her appearance that something is wrong. And finally, when she tells them that this is my Khudafiz, I'm leaving, and she tells them to go away, and a time comes when Asma ibn Umays has called out to Imam Ali and says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Oh Ali, Fatima Zahra alayha salam has left this world. Fatima Zahra has left this world. Imagine for a moment Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he's doing the enshrouded, he's doing the ghusl, the ablution on Fatima Zahra. People near and far can hear him crying and wailing. And they ask him, Ya Ali, the sabr that you have, you are a sabr. Why are you in this state crying like a young child and crying like a baby? Imam Ali alayhi salam replies that the injuries on Fatima Zahra were such, she would not complain, but those injuries and the tortures on her were unbearable. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Oh Allah, please accept this ibadat from us. Please forgive our sins. بِحَقِّ فَاطِمَةَ الزَّهْرَاء وَفَاطِمَةَ وَأَبِيهَا وَبَعْلِهَا وَبَنُوهَا. Oh Allah, make us closer to the teachings of the Quran and Majid and the Ahlul Bayt. Let us follow them throughout our lives. Oh Allah, those who are ill, grant them shifa kamila from their illnesses. Those who are in debt, help them fulfill their debts, Ya Allah. Those who are suffering oppression in so many parts of the world, whether it is in Iran as a result of the sanctions, whether it is in Iraq, whether it is in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Palestine, Yemen, in Bahrain, in Nigeria, in Kashmir, in Syria, Ya Allah, hasten the downfall of the oppressors and grant the mustadafin, the oppressed, a speedy victory, Ya Allah. We ask you, bihaqqi Fatima Zahra, hasten the return of our Imam al-Hujjah al-Qaim. Let us be amongst the Ashab and the Ansar of the Imam. Let us be with the Imam to establish equality, truth, and justice throughout the world. Let us be able to see Zamana al-Dhuhur with our own eyes. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم صل.
رتل يا باب الزهراء حديث الدار، رتل يا باب الزهراء حديث الدار، رتل يا باب الزهراء حديث. ارفع ايدك وجاوب. رتل يا باب الزهراء. اسمع لاذت قال الباب، لاذت قال الباب، ولها النور حجاب، مشكاة والمصباح زجاجته الدمعات. نادت يا من جاءوا إحراقا قد شاءوا، نادت يا من جاءوا إحراقا. إن القرآن وهذا الدار هو الآيات، إن القرآن وهذا الدار هو الآيات. أنسيتم قول أبي فاطم تعني طه، أنسيتم قول أبي فاطم تعني طه، تعني آذاني جهرا من قد آذاها، تعني آذاني جهرا من قد آذاها، تعني من أبكاها فالنار سيصلاها، تعني من أبكاها فالنار سيصلاها، وجهنم عقباه. هل جاءوا بالجزل إلى دار المختار؟ رتل يا باب الزهراء عزيز الدار، رتل يا باب الزهراء، رتل إيدك. قال الباب أتاها، قال الباب أتاها، ملعون ناداها، مات محمد والحكم اليوم لنا والله، إنا منه برئنا، إنا منه برئنا، ومن الدين خرجنا، وكفرنا بالقرآن وإنا أنزلنا. دفعوا باب الدار وفيه شب النار، دفعوا باب الدار وفيه شب النار، والرجس بضلع الزهراء أنبت مسمارا، صاحت يا فضة أسقط حملي والله، غوثاه فوا غوثاه. الله قال الباب أتاها، قال الباب أتاها، ملعون ناداها، مات محمد والحكم اليوم لنا والله، إنا منه برئنا ومن الدين خرجنا، وكفرنا بالقرآن وإنا أنزلنا. دفعوا باب الدار وفيه شب النار، والرجس